Spiny Tips. Today we are going to talk about the continuation of the chapter Control and Coordination. So if you have not seen the first part, you can just see the video. I have already posted in the description box. Okay. So in the last class, we have seen that there are two types of nervous system. One is the central nervous system and the other one is the peripheral nervous system, right? The central nervous system comprises of the brain and the spinal cord, and the peripheral nervous system comprises of the nerves, okay? So as you can see in the image here, okay? So these form the parts of the peripheral nervous system. Now, if you ask me what is a neuron and what is a nerve, so neurons are basically cells, okay? The nerve cells, a single nerve cell is called as a neuron, and branches of these neurons connectively we call it as the nerves, okay? Now, you have heard about sensory neurons, okay? So first we are going to discuss about the types of the neurons. So basically the first one is the sensory neurons. Sensory neurons are basically present in the receptors. So receptors are the cells which are present in the sense organs, okay? Now, sensory neurons I have given the same color as that of the peripheral nervous system because it is the part of the peripheral nervous system, okay? Basically, the function of sensory neuron is to transmit impulses from the receptor to the central nervous system. So, these sensory neurons, they basically collect the signals from the receptors and they send it to the central nervous system, that is the brain and the spinal cord. Now, what is the other neuron? The next neuron is the relay neuron. Relay neuron basically plays the function of the linkage between two neurons, which connects any two neurons, okay? Passing of the information from one neuron to the another neuron is done with the help of the relay neuron. Now, from the central nervous system or the CNS, the information is passed to the next set of neurons, that is the motor neurons, okay? So, the motor neurons receive signals from the central nervous system, and then these transmit the impulses from the central nervous system to the effectors. Now, what are effectors? Effectors are the cells which are present in the muscles. So, basically, when you touch a hot object, okay, whenever you touch a hot object, you tend to take off your hand, right? So, there, basically, you are taking off your hand because of the signals that you receive from the motor neurons to the effectors, okay? Now, basically, all the functions are controlled by the brain, okay? So, brain basically sends signals to the spinal cord, and from there, the signals move to the spinal nerves, okay? Basically to the nerves, all right? The actions are controlled by the brain except the reflex action. In the last class, we have seen what is a reflex action. But for you, I am going to revise it once again. So, reflex action means whenever you touch a hot object, okay? Whenever you touch a hot object, the receptors which are present in the skin. So, we have studied the receptors which are present in the skin are basically thermoreceptors, right? So, thermoreceptors present in the skin receive the stimuli, okay? They receive the stimuli, and then through the sensory neuron, you can see through the sensory neuron, the messages passes to the spinal cord. So, actually in the image they have given here that the message is still passing to the brain. But before it goes to the brain, the spinal cord, that is the central nervous system, the spinal cord itself takes the action. It receives the action and then it gives a response. It doesn't wait for the brain to give a response. Instead, the spinal cord itself gives a response through the interneuron or the relay neuron. And from there it goes to the motor neuron, and from motor neuron the nerve impulses or the signals are transferred towards the effectors, that is the muscle in the arm. Okay. So from the receptors it goes to the sensory neuron, and from sensory neuron it goes to the spinal cord, and from spinal cord it goes to the interneuron, that is a relay neuron, and from the relay neuron it goes to the motor neuron. So at the end the effector receives the signals from the motor neuron. So here the function of the brain is very limited, only in reflex action. Okay, reflex action, the brain doesn't perform any function. Okay, now what is reflex arc? Already we have seen in the last class that the pathway of the signals where it forms a U-shaped structure or a pathway, okay, this is called as a reflex arc. An arc is formed, right? So that is why we call it as a reflex arc. Okay. Voluntary action is walking, running, reading, writing. All these are the voluntary actions, and breathing, heartbeat. Okay, all these are involuntary actions. Now moving forward to brain. Brain is one of the complex organ which helps in controlling all the functions, all the actions of the body except the reflex action. Highest coordinating center of the body, and it performs functions which are complex and cannot be performed by spinal cord made of nerves. Okay. So protection of the brain, since it's a very important organ, it's the main coordinating center of the body, it needs to be protected. So for the protection, there is a presence of a bony box called as the cranium or the skull. And this is surrounded by membranes and fluid for protection and shock absorption. The membranes of the brain, okay, I'm just giving in extra information to you. The membranes of the brain are called as meninges. We call it as meninges. Okay, this is an extra information. So it is surrounded by membranes and fluid for protection and shock absorption. Just like you receive some product from Amazon, you receive it in a bubble wrap, right? So that helps in the shock absorption. That prevents the product from getting some breakage or damage or anything like that, right? Similarly, brain also is surrounded by membranes, and it is surrounded by the skull or the cranium. Okay, now parts of the brain. So first part of the brain is the forebrain. So you can see I've given the colors very similar to the parts. I'll just explain it to you. The forebrain consists of the first part or the one part, that is the cerebrum. Okay, so cerebrum is the main part of the forebrain. So this controls voluntary actions, and cerebrum is the main thinking part of the brain. So cerebrum is also involved in the storage of information such as memories. Okay, and it receives sensory impulses from sense organs and sends impulses to the motor area. So this is the function of the cerebrum. Moving to the midbrain. So midbrain, the main function is to perform involuntary actions. Okay, so hindbrain. Hindbrain is the third part of the brain where we have three parts. One is cerebellum, medulla and pons. Okay, cerebellum controls posture and balance and precision of voluntary actions. Medulla controls involuntary functions like blood pressure, salivation and vomiting. And pons controls involuntary actions like regulation of the respiration. Alright. Now, moving to the next part of the central nervous system, that is the spinal cord. Already we have seen about brain. Now we are talking about the spinal cord. So spinal cord, basically it is a cylindrical structure. It is enclosed in a bony cage called the vertebral column. Okay. So this the function of spinal cord basically is to conduct the nerve impulses to and from the brain. Okay, basically bring the messages from the brain to the other parts and from other parts to the brain. And it is also involved in the reflex action. So reflex action is regulated by the spinal cord. Since it's a very important part of the nervous system, this is also enclosed in a bony cage called as the vertebral column. So you can just touch at the back of your neck, you can feel a bony cage-like structure. This is nothing but the vertebral column. Alright. Now, we have completed the central nervous system. Now we are going to talk about the peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system is of two types. One is autonomic nervous system and the next one is voluntary nervous system. Basically, the one which conducts involuntary and voluntary functions. Okay. The autonomic nervous system controls and regulates functions of internal organs of our body involuntarily. Breathing, digestion, sweating, all the functions that help us in maintaining of our life and to keep us alive are controlled by the autonomic nervous system. And the ones which can be controlled, such as writing, walking, dancing, which are voluntary actions, are taken care by the voluntary nervous system. Alright. So if you revise once again the first video, that is about the stimuli and reflex action, reflex arc, neurons, the structure of the nerve cell, then about the types of neurons and brain, the parts of the brain and peripheral nervous system, you are good to go regarding the control and coordination chapter. This is all about control and coordination in animals. In the next video, I'll be posting about how plants control or how plants body have a controlling and coordinating system. So keep watching BioNet Tips. Subscribe to BioNet Tips if you have not subscribed yet. Like my videos, share my videos with your friends, and I hope you have understood this concept. If you have understood, please hit the like button and also comment in the comment box if you have any doubts. Thank you.